Welcome, brothers. My name is Father Innocent, and this is Father Angelus. We are Franciscan Friars of the Renewal, and welcome to week 4 of Sons in the Sun weekly video series, where we are partnering with the Knights of Columbus to walk through a 40-day consecration to Our Lady of Guadalupe.
It feels like a run through.
Yeah, hey, I feel like we're sprinting through. If you feel just with our energy and kind of intensity, if you feel like this has like been a workout, you're probably on par, because we're kind of full of life and we can up the ante.
And we talked about masculinity last week, so everybody's kind of feeling like, let's do
up.
it, you know? But we also want to continue to say, hey, that the consecration can be a space of prayer. So generally that space needs to be calm and receptive to the Lord. So just take a deep breath with us, brothers, as we begin this new week. And Father, this is this transition the journey we've been on so far, of sonship and prayer and masculinity last week. This transition is beautiful because now we really get to dive into what we are really passionate about, which is really the person of Jesus, who he is and what he reveals as kind of a blueprint of how to follow him in the gospel.
Yeah, and one thing we like to talk about, and if you've obviously been tuning in and praying with us, we are really kind of we've built the foundation, and now we're like building the house. When we talk about our identity, when we talk about sonship, we're really building a foundation so God can build the kingdom in our lives, right? So I promise you, Father Angelus, I know we're like pretty intense, and we could seem to be high energy and all over the place, but we promise there's a method to the madness. And we are attempting, what we attempted to do is to build the foundation of what it means to live our sonship, to live our baptism, to live so deeply anchored in prayer and intimacy with God. And last week we took a shift right into the gift of our masculinity. What does it mean to be a man after the heart of Jesus? What does it mean to be a son who is a man who is really transformed with the masculinity of Jesus? Now, brothers, you're going to see this week, now we're going to take even more of a turn, and we're going to start talking about what it means to actually live like Jesus. We're going to start talking about when does sonship and prayer bear fruit, where my actions and attitudes begin to reflect the actions and attitudes of Jesus. Father Angelus, this is what the Catechism says. It's pretty awesome. And so why don't you take us there as far as what do we mean by really living the way Jesus lived?
Yeah, the Catechism will talk about living the gospel as receiving the attitudes and actions of Jesus, and there's the reference to the Beatitudes. And so the Beatitudes are the space and the teaching of Jesus, the main body of the teaching of Jesus in Matthew 5 mainly, but they're what Pope Benedict calls the revelation of the heart of Jesus. They're a blueprint on how to follow Jesus in the gospel. And so we're really excited, because now we do get to go, like, what does it look like when we experience the invitation to grow in our masculinity, but how does it bear fruit? And we're going to hold up the Beatitudes this week as we go through our reflections to be able to use the Beatitudes as an imitation of what it means to be followers of Jesus.
And brothers, this radical consecration, this radical restoration is, again, it's a new experience to live differently, right? Every part of my life belongs to Jesus. Every part of, again, the gift of our baptism, every part of who I am is consecrated to Jesus, right? So that's why, like, it matters the way I live my life. It matters the decisions I make. It matters what my personality is like. It matters how I experience and I communicate, and it just matters in every way that I live, right? And this is what we want to invite you to, is to radically look at that. Like, does every part of my words and my actions and my personality and my temperament, did every part of my life reflect the person of Jesus? And to say that in a different way, does every part of my sonship, the way that I experience my relationship with God, does that reflect the person of Jesus? Because, brothers, that's our inheritance. That's what we're all about here. That's where we're going all in on. Our Christian life is not like, just something I do on Sunday or just something in my personal prayer. It's actually supposed to kind of explode into every part of my life, in my work, in my family, in my friendships, what I do in my free time, my hobbies, every part of it. It's supposed to transform every part of my life. So, Father Angelus, this is the invitation, and again, I'll tee you up here, but again, we're not just focused on random attitudes and actions that are just like good things. Like, oh, I just want to make good decisions, or I just want to be nice to people, or no, it's actually the fullness of Jesus's life to actually be invited to live like him. And that's the gift of the Beatitudes. It's actually the heart of Jesus in real time in his daily life.
And this is where it could get challenging, dear brothers, because we're not just talking about behaviors. We're not just talking about like, I'm going to go do these things or live this particular way. When we talk about actions and attitudes of Jesus, like, wow, we are called through the grace of our baptism, through the grace of our sonship, to start to think like Jesus, not to act like Jesus, to feel like Jesus, and allow the Beatitudes to be able to show us what that looks like. Father, I was thinking a little bit about when, if ever sports players, we remember this growing up playing sports, if you're ever in a slump or you ever want to get better or improve your game, there's always this invitation to go back to the fundamentals, right? It's just to make sure good teams do the fundamentals well, right? And so we said in our introduction, brothers, the Beatitudes are the fundamentals. Going back to the fundamentals, and we want to hold this up. We want to hold this week up. How am I doing when it comes to the fundamentals of the gospel, which is the Beatitudes? And that's what we're proposing. Now, Father Innes and I were joking that we can't take a half hour and talk about all the Beatitudes. And so we don't really know this is where this is going to go. But Father, I think it's probably important to talk about the beginning, right? Jesus says, blessed are the poor in spirit. And we've hinted at this when we talk about Our Lady and we talk about St. Juan Diego in the book so far. But blessed are the poor in spirit, dear brothers, is a posture of heart, is an attitude and an action of heart where we live in a deep poverty before the Lord. Like Jesus was poor, meaning Jesus was emptied, and so he could be filled. Right. And so the gospel term for this is kenosis. It's a self-emptying. It's a recognition of, I know the relationship that I'm in and the one who I trust, that if I empty myself and if I don't grasp at particular things to fill me, that God the Father will fill me. And this is, brothers, the gift of poverty of heart is the gift where we get to experience the providence of the Father. I love the word providence because it's about the goodness of the Father, that if we allow ourselves with Jesus and Our Lady and St. Juan Diego to be poor, to be men who are poor in spirit, who are constantly relying on God the Father for everything to experience his providential goodness, we will experience a new relationship with God because we will be able to experience what it means to be sons who are loved and provided for. And that, brothers, is really terrifying to most men. Because what do you mean I have to let go? What do you mean I have to experience an emptiness in my heart? What do you mean I don't have to have all the answers? What do you mean that I don't have to have everything in place before I experience the gift of being poor before the Lord and be poor before God the Father so he can really come and take care of me? It's a posture of Jesus that the Father takes care of him. And only when we make a radical response to be poor like him will we experience that as well.
Father, I love the Beatitudes. We could spend hours, right? And I just want to make a comment and then maybe zoom into one of my favorites. But I just want to make sure, brothers, that we understand the tension here, right? Because as you look at the Beatitudes, you're going to be tempted, or at least I'm tempted to think, well, but like a lot of these don't look masculine, like being poor and being receptive and kind of letting go of control or not being in the world's eyes, it looks like you're weak. Or what does it mean to mourn, right? Like men don't cry, right? Or what does it mean to be meek and humble? Like the world presents to us like strong men who kind of are ruthless and they're powerful, right? But what does it mean to be merciful or pure of heart? Well, we have an oversaturated culture that struggles with lust. What does it mean to be pure? Like that's weak, you know? Or what does it mean to live as a peacemaker? Or what does it mean to be persecuted? I don't like being persecuted. We can be tempted to think that the Beatitudes are signs of weakness. And I'm not saying you're going to like overly argue with your pastor that like, well, these are signs of weakness, but sometimes it's subtle, right? We're afraid of the Beatitudes, or we write them off because they don't necessarily fit the category of what I think it means to be a man. Brothers, we have to fight this temptation. Jesus is the perfect man, and his attitudes and actions, which are summed up and captivated by the Beatitudes, are the perfect roadmap for us. You could spend the rest of your life just studying the Beatitudes and how Jesus lived them and begging for the grace to be faithful to them. And you could be a saint. You could be holy living the Beatitudes. One of my favorite is just Jesus when he says, blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Jesus says in Matthew 11, learn from me, for I am meek and humble of heart. And here's the definition. We take this from our friend Father Simeon Marikakis. Such Christian meekness rests not upon constraint and resignation, but upon the freedom of the person who knows he is always and everywhere loved by God. The meek have found their place in the heart of God and has no time or interest for any other activity but that of reflecting the sovereign peace of God.
How's that for a way of living, right?
To be meek, it's not weak. To be meek means after the heart of Jesus, that I know who I am and I don't have to prove myself. I don't have to fight for what the world thinks I should be, but I can be a man of openness and receptivity and humility. And I can, because I know who I am and live the truth about my sonship, that I can live in profound, deep interior peace. So this is like living your attitude you're living your identity to the full. I am a meek man. I know who I am, and I can live from the strength of that place. I don't have to grasp after anything else, any other powers, any other distractions, any other idols. I can live in the meekness of God. Blessed are the meek, because they will inherit the earth, because they know who they are, and they can live in that relationship. And brothers, that's where the power is. So again, we hold out these examples for you because you can just look at the life of Jesus, and he's going to live them to perfection.
You know what's beautiful about Saint Juan Diego as well is that you can see Juan Diego's life, and you can see his story, and you can see every single one of these Beatitudes in it. And so it's really powerful to recognize that he continues to be in the story of Our Lady of Guadalupe. He continues to be a space when we talk about poverty, where he acknowledges his poverty. He acknowledges himself as the little one, right? And then also he knows who he is, right? And so he's in his meekness, he lives his identity, and he lives the inheritance. And so he can be persecuted by the bishop, and he can be, they doubt him, and they're kind of trying to try to figure him out. And his whole story, his whole itinerary in the midst of trying to be faithful to Our Lady, the seeking righteousness, right? And being a merciful one, and caring about his uncle. And there's all these things where the Beatitudes comes out in his heart and his story.
And he was persecuted.
And he was persecuted for it. Absolutely. Right. He was persecuted for it. And so he becomes, again, a place where we can see that this is what it means to live, right? And it's a very different proclamation than what the world might hold up as what a man is, or as what the attributes of masculinity are, like we talked about last week. And so, dear brothers, like Our Lady was the one who protected Jesus and gave him space to be who he was in the midst of giving witness to his heart that was full of all the Beatitudes, right? Our Lady was the one who protected his poverty. Our Lady was the one who constantly gave his inheritance. Our Lady was the one who nurtured mercy in him. Our Lady was the one who protected him and allowed him to live an experience, and preparing him to be persecuted in the future. Our Lady was talked about like a mantle of peace in Nazareth. And so again, these things that are coming, and Mary's protecting and Joseph are protecting in Nazareth, becomes a real space for Jesus to his attitudes and his actions were formed by them. And then he could really give a beautiful image to the world of what it means to live as a son of the Father.
And what the good news is, brothers, that again, Juan Diego is such a good example, because if you read the story, like this is exactly what Our Lady does for Juan Diego. She mothers him through the Beatitudes. And you can see him in the concrete parts of the story, right? She mothers him through the converted, transformation, like reconsecrated attitudes and actions of Jesus. And so Juan Diego, again, is a perfect example that we can grow, we can change, and we can repent. But brothers, this is the invitation. This is the reconsecration happens when we are converted in every part of our attitudes and actions to live like Jesus. Our Lady wants to do this for Juan Diego, but more importantly, she wants to do it for you.
Brothers, before we close, just to recognize that Juan Diego was not a talented man. The experience of his following of the Lord and being chosen by Our Lady was not because he was talented or because he was gifted. They saw something different in him. They saw the gospel in him. They saw a ripe kind of like flower bed of something where the gospel could be planted and he could live his mission, right? And so we want to be careful to make following of Jesus and living mission in the church and becoming men of prayer, all of the experiences that we're talking about being talented or gifted, because that was not Juan Diego. But Juan Diego was ripe and open and ready to receive the gospel And these things were formed into him by Our Lady. So he became an image and a witness of a man of the Beatitudes. And that's exactly who Jesus was.
Yeah. My brothers, I'm going to speak these blessings over you, and they're just going to be the names of the Beatitudes. And I just really want you to, again, to receive the truth of what you're made for, receive the restoration and reconsecration of all the actions and attitudes of your heart to be conformed to Jesus, as Our Lady wants to bless you with this. My brothers, blessed are the poor. Blessed are they who mourn. Blessed are the meek. And blessed are those who hunger and search for righteousness. Blessed are the merciful. Blessed are the pure of heart. Blessed are the peacemakers. Blessed are those who are persecuted. Brothers, these Beatitudes are the truth of restoration of our sonship that Jesus wants to bring you.
And through the intercession of Our Lady and St. Juan Diego, may you experience in a new way a call to have the actions and attitudes of Jesus in your heart through the Beatitudes. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen. Brothers, we hope you enjoyed today's reflection of Sons in the Son, restoring our sonship through our consecration of Our Lady of Guadalupe with Father Innocent and Father Angelus Montgomery, Franciscan Friars of the Renewal. For more resources to help you grow as an adopted son of God the Father through Our Lady of Guadalupe, visit kofc.org/sons. That's kofc.org/SONS. This has been a Knights of Columbus production. To learn more about how the Knights of Columbus can help you grow as a Catholic man, visit kfc.org/learn more.